Okay, what is happening with Season of Discovery? Brand new account restrictions, tons of information on the new raid, including class ranking so far, incredible gear you can acquire right now, community comments, so much more. My name's Sky from The Comeback. This is your Season of Discovery news. Grab a cup of coffee, sit down. We got a lot to discuss today. Okay, I don't know about you all, but I am sick and tired of eating fast food garbage and shoveling it down as quick as possible to get right back to gaming. And then when I want a decent meal, I have to either cook for an hour or spend a ridiculous amount of money to have it delivered. That's why if you're a real gamer like me, Factor Meals is the perfect solution to your food problem. Picture this: affordable, healthy, and ready-to-eat meals in under 2 minutes, catered specifically to any diet needed like high protein, vegan, gluten-free, keto, and more. Guys, please do yourself a favor, eliminate the hassle of prepping, cooking, cleaning up, save your money, and eat better with restaurant quality meals delivered right to your door. Click the link in the description below and use my code COMEBACKAPR50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. Not only do you eat better, but you also directly support the channel to keep the dream alive. Now, let's get back to the content. Oh, that's actually so good. What? That's crazy. Okay, welcome back. Now, with the new phase comes always new ways for Blizzard to try and fight against the, bot meta inside of World of Warcraft, because they actually just revealed that there's a brand new account restriction for brand new players in Season of Discovery. Now, for some unknown reason out there have been a small amount of players throughout the forums stating that they can't trade, use mail, or even use the auction house at all on their characters, and it's left them really frustrated and confused. Blizzard actually came out with some clarifications and some statements on the reason that this is happening, because if it's your first time adding game time onto your WoW account, you will not be able to trade with other players, use the auction house, or in-game mail for 30 days. Then after that, the restrictions will be lifted automatically and you can go about your normal day-to-day activities. Now, of course, what this means is that they're trying to combat botting and gold buying inside of Season of Discovery, because usually what players will do is they'll have a sort of burner account where they will pay $15 and get a bunch of gold bought on that burner account to then trade it over to their main characters, and the risk of them getting caught is very low doing that. So Blizzard definitely helped against something like that by stepping in and eliminating this for 30 days at your first initial, entrance into World of Warcraft. But it does look like it's causing some frustrations to brand new players for a little while, which I'm not gonna lie, seems very tough not using the auction house for 30 days straight. But we'll see how this goes and continues to play out as we move into the future. Not only that though, it seems that with Phase 3, we got some brand new interesting waylaid supply rewards for reaching Exalted. This is something that a lot of the player base and myself have been really excited to see what they would be integrating at the very end of the reputation grind, and we're finally getting a first look at it. As you can see on screen, we have more items in the head slot piece, which work almost like heirlooms to help speed up the process of leveling, which are bind on account for your characters. You have an 18 slot bag, a trinket that allows you to sometimes find additional waylaid supplies from enemies, and a fun trinket that turns you inanimate. Now, I do think these rewards are cool, especially the one where you find additional waylaid supplies, which can help you maybe even make some gold off of it. But if I'm being completely honest with everyone here and myself, I was kind of hoping and expecting for something a bit more flavorful for reaching Exalted. I don't know, something maybe that involves crafting, some recipes, or maybe a way to buy rune slots for your alternate characters to make it a bit easier to collect runes for them. Like maybe you could buy something that gives you a random rune and it's bind on account that you can give to one of your alts, or something that makes you buy the, Dark Rider rune instantly rather than having to go through that whole process, most likely alone, because not many people are doing it. Don't get me wrong, I love that they're adding these items to make you more powerful early on in your leveling so you can level up quicker, but I'm just really hoping they continue to add on to this reputation vendor as we head into the level 60 in just a few months. Overall though, I'm not complaining because I think there's a lot of cool things in the waylaid supply reputation vendor. I just hope they add some more flavorful things. Speaking of flavorful items that came to Season of Discovery, it'd be a shame if we didn't bring up the epic crafting questline for Phase 3 that gives you some very solid profession recipes. Similar to Phase 1 and 2, to unlock your epic crafting gear, you'll be sent on a super long detailed questline taking you across all of Azeroth, and once again crossing paths with the shadowy figure. If you're looking for a detailed guide, you can check out the Simonize video in the link in the description below. He put out a very good video on that, or you can check out the Wowhead article we have linked in the description below as well. It's important to know that after you complete this long quest chain, most of the items have effects that are restricted to being within the nightmare, which in all likelihood means that it'll only work inside a sunken temple as well as the nightmare incursions. Most of the crafted items require a mantle of nightmares as well to craft, which of course you will be rewarded with one for completing the quest chain. But if you want to get an additional one, you could purchase them for a very minor 10 gold each inside a booty bay. I will say there have been some issues with the crafting quest chain over the last few days because, you know, at one point you need to wait for an NPC to spawn, and the respawn timer is like anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes in between each other, which felt really, really bad to do. And this is something that Blizzard was looking at, and they stated they were going to fix very soon. So hopefully by the time you guys see this video, it's already fixed. So let's see about that. Don't forget, with this epic crafting gear, you can get some fantastic shoulders if you're tailoring, blacksmithing, or leatherworking, some decent bracers if you're engineer, flasks if you're an alchemist, and sigils if you're an enchanter. So if you're looking for a power spike, definitely look into this. And speaking of big power spikes, one of the strongest things you can do right now this week is attempt to grab the Darkmoon Card Trinket set, allowing you access to some of the most powerful trinkets we've seen inside of Season of Discovery. The Sandstorm card, dealing damage around you, which is great for tanks or melee DPS. The Darkmoon card Torment, which is fantastic for PvP, which gives you a chance to cause a target to wander and suffer for 3 seconds, kind of working like a stun. And then another card that leeches health, deals a nice chunk of burst damage, which is probably good for ranged DPS. Now, there are a wide variety of ways to target farm these specific cards out there, and I know it could get very confusing. I actually did some research. I put a link in the description below for you guys showing you exactly where to farm these specific cards, whether it be, you know, certain mobs out in the open world, certain bosses inside of dungeons, whatever the case may be. Additionally, though, you can take your wild offerings, which work almost as like, you know, heroic dungeon type tokens, which you acquire from killing the ghost at the end of the instance, and then turn them in at the vendor to get the Shadow Tooth bag, which gives you a random card as well. Not only is this a great way to make your character significantly stronger using these cards, because these trinkets are just absolutely game-changing, they can be a fantastic way in making gold and, you know, getting these cards and selling them directly on the auction house, because a lot of people are looking to buy them right now. So either way, very, very big. You guys should go check it out. They're actually so strong that recently the Sandstorm card was nerfed, but before the nerf, it was like tripling Shaman's brand new broken Lightning Shield rune, which puts into perspective how strong these class cards really were. Additionally, when it comes to being broken, it seems like Shaman's got another broken ability added to their toolkit. Listen, as a Shaman main, I think this is starting to become a little bit of a meme at this point, because I knew this ability was going to be broken 3 weeks ago when it was data mined, and what really put it into perspective was the fact that I've been playing other tanking classes like the Paladin, Warrior, Guardian Druid, and playing Enhancement Shaman Tank is kind of like playing the game on easy mode. Not only are you incredibly tanky, but you just got a brand new ability that deals so much damage to everyone around you on a 1 second cooldown. It is so strong, which is by far the most broken thing I've seen for tanks inside of SOD so far. Overall, very strong, and I see this getting adjusted this week. Speaking of adjustments, it seems that we got our very first hotfix patch for multiple things inside of Season of Discovery Phase 3, which include nerfs to the avatar of Hakar, changes to the nightmare incursions, and some fixes for some classes out there. For warrior tanks, it seems that their shield slam ability wasn't properly generating enough of a threat that it was actually adjusted to be, so they fixed that, as well as their devastate ability wasn't even correctly dealing the right amount of damage, so they fixed that as well, so I guess they're gonna work properly now. Yeah, when it comes to Nightmare Incursions, it seems like they're changing up the quest objectives for Nightmare Incursions, which will now have multiple, you know, simultaneous spawn locations for the looting quest at the same time, so we'll have to see how this changes some of the quests out there. And then a very big one is that they're reducing the experience awarded from Nightmare Incursions by 50%. Previously, when the phase first dropped, we were getting around 7,700 experience point at its peak, which now you're getting around 3,000-ish per turn in. Either way, it's still a very, very fast way to level up if you want to go do it. It's just not going to be the only way you'd want to level anymore. You'd probably want to go do other things like dungeons with a bunch of quests, or the raid lockouts to get a bunch of XP as well. And then finally, for the last change for Nightmare Incursions, they're actually increasing the reputation granted by the level 50 quest. Now, previously, you would acquire 75 reputation per quest, but that is now slightly being changed to where the escort quests give you 100 rep each and the kill quests give you 150, providing more reputation because, you know, you have to do more work to turn in that quest. which makes sense. Overall, this is definitely going to speed up the reputation grind a little bit, which is always a good thing as well, considering I have a bunch of characters I want to go play and do all this reputation grinding with. So a little bit easier, I don't mind at all. Additionally, it seems that the Sunken Temple raid is getting nerfed for a third time within a matter of 5 days, being launched with the Shade of Aranicus having a ton of his abilities being reduced in threat to the actual raid drastically, as well as his health being reduced by over 50%. Yes, you heard that properly, going from 4 million HP down to 1.5 million health, which is a very, very big change, and will make this boss a lot easier than before. Now listen, I don't know about you all, ladies and gentlemen, but something that I've always loved in World of Warcraft is, you know, at least some challenging progression content on the last 2 bosses within a raid. Usually what happens inside of WoW is a formula they've, you know, consistently followed, is that the first 4 or 5 bosses within a raid are usually layup bosses, meaning that they're very straightforward, not so much challenge, but generally they're there to give you some loot to prep you for the final bosses, right? Because the final bosses are typically the hardest bosses in most cases out there. Nerfing the final 2 bosses already in Sunken Temple multiple times within less than a week, I think personally is a mistake, because challenge is one of those things that keeps players busy inside of an MMORPG. You know, it gives them something to strive towards, something for a long time players have to, you know, constantly work at, you know, get their previs, consumables, war buffs, and then go back in there and try it again. I mean, beating something on the first or second try now, the fact of the matter is, it's probably just going to be too easy. I mean, I was in a raid last night with my guild, and we went 5 out of 8 with no consumables, no pre-raid best in slot, no world buffs, pretty much nothing. And not only that, we did the raid completely blind, meaning that we had no add-ons, no guides, no alerts, no DBM to help us at all. Now listen, I don't know. I personally would have wanted them to hold out on the nerfs a little bit longer, so at least, you know, it can give a lot of the guilds out there an opportunity to try to see something that's like, you know, very difficult or challenging or to progress toward. So you guys got to let me know in the comments section below what you all think about it. Are you for them nerfing the raid to make it easier? Or do you like the raid being a lot more challenging, and at least the final 2 bosses can be a little bit difficult to where you have to progress toward? Let me know what you guys think about that. Additionally, when it comes to Sunken Temple, the loot sources for every single boss was officially revealed over on Wowhead. So if you're target farming a specific weapon or armor piece, you can go check it out right now and pray to the gods right before you actually fight that said boss in this week's raid that you'd want that item to drop. I'm personally hoping for that 2-handed, like, snake staff that gives 2% crit. That thing looks awesome, and it looks very strong. I'm excited for that one. Okay, now moving on now to the juice of today's video, being about the logs inside of Sunken Temple for the first lockout, as well as the first day in the second lockout. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, these numbers and data you see here are very clearly early on in the phase, and there's adjustments coming very soon to a lot of these classes, I would say, out there. But I gotta tell you, we have a lot of changes previously from the last phase from No More Again. I'm just gonna say you all were wrong about melee DPS being crap this phase, because kicking things off with our top damaging classes, we have Melee Hunter and DPS Rogue. Melee Hunter wasn't really a surprise to me, as they don't really require a lot of gear to deal a lot of damage, but typically from what I've seen, wherever they're at the start of the phase, that pretty much ends up where they're going to stay in terms of raw DPS as the phase continues. So in my opinion, I would see Melee Hunter slowly starting to drop down as the phase continues. DPS Rogue is officially back, ladies and gentlemen, and this class is dominating right now. We had a few rogues in our Sunken Temple raid last night, and they were always on top of the charts, absolutely blasting these bosses. A simple, straightforward rotation that deals a ton of damage, easy to learn. Rogues are officially back, and they are here to stay. Moving on now to the next tier of DPS, we have Damaging Warrior, Enhancement Shaman as well, and boy oh boy, DPS Warrior starting off very strong this phase, and in my opinion, I could see them being the top DPS in just a matter of a couple weeks once they acquire some gear. I told you all, ladies and gentlemen, as Season of Discovery is going to go on, Warriors will be the #1 DPS. I've been saying it since phase 1. All of you guys freaking out and panicking, all you Warrior mains, you have nothing to worry about. I promise you, the proof is in the pudding. This class has a great and fun in-depth rotation that if you perform it properly, you'll just annihilate things in a matter of seconds. I only see them getting stronger. Enhancement Shaman is back near the top as well, even though they got nerfed a bunch, which in my personal opinion is a big surprise. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that these fights are very, you know, caster unfriendly, and there's a lot of movement, which never feels good as a caster DPS, so melee is going to typically be on top in these scenarios this phase, I would say. Heading in the next tier, we have Pharaoh Druid, Ranged Hunter, and Retribution Paladin. Pharaoh Druid is actually back since phase 1, ladies and gentlemen. They have their brand new catnip consumable, their wolf's head helmet. The power shifting ability of Feral is just really kicking right now, and it's very cool to see them back near the top of the DPS meters like they were in phase 1. I'm definitely going to level up my Feral Druid as soon as possible after seeing this, because I've been looking for an excuse to play that character, so we'll have to dive into that. We also have Marksmanship Hunter performing very well right now due to the fact that a lot of these fights require a lot of mobility, and they can just, you know, instantly get some shots off in between their moving. Not only that, they have a lot of good runes like Lock and Load, really pushing them over the edge right now, and Hunter is just in a really fantastic spot right now. So if you're a hunter, very, very good for you all. Moving on, Retribution Paladin is right on the edge of being great, but also right on the edge of just being flat out bad. They are the worst melee DPS spec in the entire game, according to these numbers, and considering how hard this raid actually is for casters, they are slowly slipping down, and I'm not sure it's looking too good for them overall. We'll have to see how they end up in the next few weeks, but if I had to guess, I think they're slowly going to drop down in the rankings, and I don't think it's looking good. Now, moving on to the casters, we have Fire Mage and Warlock. Both of these specs performed incredibly well last phase when they had some time to, you know, cast all their abilities. But due to the current raid's mechanics, once again, just being tough for casters to deal with, a bunch of their damage is negated because they constantly have to be moving. We saw both these classes in the top 5 throughout the entire phase, so seeing this right here was a very big surprise. Then you have other classes that bring great utility like Elemental Shaman, Balanced Druid, Shadow Priest. These classes' utility spells and burst windows are fantastic. They'll always have a spot in a raid no matter what, due to just how much they actually bring. It just feels bad personally when your damage is simply not as high as everyone else's, so we'll have to see how this pans out in the next few weeks. And finally, to the biggest surprise I've seen out of all of Season of Discovery, Frost Mage isn't the worst garbage can spec in the game right now. It isn't dead last, it is second to last. But the worst in the game is Arcane Mage. It is so bad right now because they can never get into their, you know, turret mode, casting, rotation, all to having to be mobile constantly. And it's just very, very rough for Arcane Mages right now. So if you're an Arcane Mage, let's get some RIPs in the chat for you all. Moving on now to healers. Of course, topping the meters in terms of healing per second has got to go down to the Restoration Druid. This class's AoE healing potential is just through the freaking roof right now, and this is definitely not going to change as the phase goes on. You have Wild Growth paired with Efflorescence, Life Bloom. I mean, this class has so much healing coming out of its ass. Its rotation is just so good at this point. S+ tier healer, Innervate, Battle Res, absolutely mandatory to have in your raid. Next up, we have the Priest Healing, which brings an incredible amount of viability and single target healing to your raid group, as well as just a ton of utility with all their buffs and stuff. We both know that these two classes are going to be on top constantly throughout Season of Discovery, so that is no surprise here. Moving on now to the actual competition between the final 3. We surprisingly have Holy Paladin on the 3rd slot. I know a lot of you people out there were upset with the runes Holy Paladin have been getting, but the truth of the matter is that they're all healing, and their rotation just works, man. It may be boring, it may be stiff, but good God, does it work. Their critical strike chance with their heals are through the roof. They're constantly spamming Flash of Lights, getting their mana back. An excellent class overall with very powerful defensives to keep them alive. Definitely a great class to bring inside of your raid. Then once again, we have the Mage at the second to last, which has the potential of being really great, in my opinion, in the right hands. They have very, very great raid-wide healing and effective DPS rotation if they have some time to cast abilities. Overall, though, I don't think Mage is in a terrible spot. I think of them almost kind of like a half healer, half DPS option, which is always cool to see inside of your raid, so I'm happy with these numbers overall, not upset here. Something I'm not happy with, though, is once again, Restoration Shamans. Good God, this class just is not performing well once again. I'm hoping this changes once they get their 3-piece tier set that makes, you know, their healing rain instant, but overall, this class is just getting flat out beat by everybody right now, man, and it's just not even close. I think this class is in desperate need of some rune adjustments and changes overall to make it even close to viable, so hopefully they get some work done to them sometime in the near future, because it's just embarrassing to see at this point. You know, it's not cool seeing a class at the bottom tier every single phase, so hopefully they get some changes. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this was the very first lockout data, so don't take this too much to heart, because things could change over the next couple weeks or two. I do expect there to be some class adjustments this week from the developers, so that's when we'll really get the real logs for you all, probably sometime next week. Don't forget to leave comments about Phase 3 and everything else so far so we can bring it up, you know, all these problems or concerns you may have in our news videos to try to get them fixed or improved when it comes to communicating with the developers out there. So if you have any comments, leave them down below. Starting off, we have We stating that it felt horrible that incursions were repeatable. Having it as a daily quest or something like that would have been much better. I feel like I have to do it over and over again on all my characters just before the nerfs kick in. And yeah, I do have to agree. It felt like I had to do the incursions as soon as possible because when they get nerfed, I will just be simply behind all the other players. If I didn't, they would just be miles ahead of me. So now listen, did I abuse it as much as I could have? No, because I only got one character leveled up. I stopped doing it. I felt terrible actually doing it, but at least I got about 300 gold, before they nerfed it. Once again, I wish this was on a daily lockout timer where you can do all 16 of the quests one time a day or once every other day, but then maybe they give you significantly more rewards. I feel like something like that would feel a lot better for the casual players out there, which is mostly what Season of Discovery the population is. Next up, we have Sinsham stating that people are going full Doomer mode just a couple days after a new phase of content is launching. Color me shocked. I've never seen that happen before in World of Warcraft. Obviously, he's being sarcastic here because anytime any new content releases for World of Warcraft, people say that it's absolute garbage, it's trash, it's not good, the game's gonna die, blah, 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 blah. But of course, in the end, everyone always knows because World of Warcraft always prevails with a little bit of time invested into it. I mean, look at Dragonflight. It started off pretty slow, but right now, you have the highest Mythic Plus participation out of any season ever in World of Warcraft, which is an insane stat, by the way. So, I mean, when it comes to Season of Discovery, it's something brand new that the developers are doing for the first time ever. So, I expect there to be some, growing pains with some of the features they are releasing and not really testing it. Nevertheless, though, these developers are on top of it more than anyone I've ever seen. I still have my hats off to them, and I trust them moving forward with my whole life at this point. Next up, we have Jeff stating, everybody still remembers that Season of Discovery is a beta test, right? Pretty much what he's implying is that Season of Discovery is just a giant testing ground for the real Classic Plus coming out later in the future, which we all know that everybody has a different version of what Classic Plus is supposed to be. But nevertheless, though, whether this be Classic Plus or not, I'm happy with Season of Discovery because this is something that I've never played or ever even experienced before, and it's one of the coolest things I've ever done in my history of gaming. Once again, I want to thank you all so much for watching these videos, man. If you're here at the end watching now, truly, it means the world that you all do this. I promise we have so many more things coming, and the road to 100,000 subscribers is still underway, and we're going to try to reach that this year, I promise you. We have a lot of things coming and a lot of investments being made in the channel, so I hope you all are ready for the nearby future. I just got moved into this place, so it's just hectic right now. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe. We got absolutely flooded with Season of Discovery content. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. It's an absolute pleasure to be making content for you all. Till the very end, my name is Sky from the Comeback Kids. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.